Check, test, 1, 2.
Good evening everyone. Good evening and welcome to the school board meeting. It is 6:30 and it is time for us to unfortunately call a halt to all the conviviality we have in the room. We're going to start our school board meeting for Monday, March 31st. The first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask you if you're able to stand and recite the pledge with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call the roll. Please respond if you're here. Ms. Lloyd?
Here.
Mr. Major?
Here.
Mr. Nowlin?
Here.
Mr. Glick?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Ms. Wielden is absent tonight because of a calendar conflict. We'll do our best in her absence. Dr. Phillips?
Thank you, Mr. Stenner. We'd like to start off each of our meetings reiterating and reconfirming our vision, mission, and core beliefs. And so I'll review those for all of us this evening. Our vision is that BCSC is the choice to learn, work, and play. Our mission is that we develop expert learners by partnering with our community to invest in people. And our core values are that we all can rise to the challenge of high expectations, that learning is most effective when we have choice, flexibility, and see relevance, that we thrive when our physical, social, and psychological needs are met, that our community and school district are stronger when we partner with one another, that we flourish because of the diversity and variability in our community, and last, that our democracy and democratic institutions are strengthened by civic-minded citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. We have a number of exciting and well-deserved recognitions this evening. First up, Mr. Clark, Mr. Lewis from Columbus North. Could you kick off our celebrations, please?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here. This is an exciting moment for us to get recognized by the board for all the hard work that our boys and girls have done this year. I want to personally say thank you to our coaches for taking the time and the effort day in and day out to make sure like our kids are becoming great, outstanding young citizens, and they do a great job of making sure our kids are doing the right thing in the classroom as well. I want to invite Bob Arthur up first, to allow him to talk about the gymnastics team.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Clark, for all your support that you've given us. It's wonderful to be recognized here today by you folks, and we appreciate that. I'll give you kind of a few things, what these girls have done. We went with an undefeated dual meet season. We went to a Connorsville Invitational, and we ended up being the champions on that. We were the sectional and regional champions this year, and we made the Final Four finish at the state meet. So our girls have been blessed with an absolutely fantastic year. A few shout outs, Mr. Clark has always been supportive of our program, as well as Brian Lewis and the rest of the athletic department. Jason Perry, Logan Heston, and Bev Addis have all been very helpful to me. And I want to thank them. Also the trainers, Kate Cockerham and Chance Newkirk. I didn't see them here, but they've helped our girls with all their boo-boos and kept us going. Got one coach, Coach Sandy Freshour is here. Sandy and I have actually coached together for, I think it's 35 years, believe it or not. And she was here slightly before me. I actually started in '82 and then left for a while, and then she came back and she was here, and so it's been a great coaching team, and we've kind of traded back head coaching positions, and also pretty much consider ourselves co-coaches all the time. I mean, I might be a head coach and figurehead only, but I certainly couldn't do what's been done with these teams without her, and I don't think she could do it without me. So I think we make one heck of a great team. Another coach who was not able to make it was Claire Thompson. Claire's joined us for a couple of years ago. This is, I think, her second year. She was a Columbus North all-around state champion and also a member of the 2016 state championship team. So she brings the youth to the program. The girls just love her, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to keep her latched into the program and keep her in the fold. I want to introduce the team members real quickly. I'm going to start with their seniors. You girls can just raise your hand, almost do a salute if you want. Reese Euler, there's Reese. And Reese was actually finished in second place on floor, so she was a great medalist today, or this year at the state meet. Arwen Tien, senior. And then our juniors, Ellie McIntyre, and Hannah Perry, Evie Richards, sophomore Emerson Chambers, and freshman Addie Gill, Hayden Harper, Hayden Hewitt, and our manager, freshman manager, Katie Castaneda. Those girls, they're being awfully shy. Anyway, the other shout outs I want to give is to the parents. They've been wonderful in their support of the program and have always stayed in our corner and helped us out. So I believe that's it, other than I do want to also give a special shout out. This is self-gratuitous to John Hines, who was a former Columbus High School and Columbus North High School coach, almost a legend in his time in the high school world, and John got me interested in this sport. So I don't know whether to thank him or curse him, but anyway, but I'll thank him. So that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. Next, we will have Matt Joyce, our head boys wrestling coach.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you to the board and Dr. Phillips. Our dual meet schedule doesn't look, our dual meet record doesn't look especially exceptional. We took on some really tough competition this year, and I'm sure it's no mystery to you guys. You guys signed off on all those overnights. We crisscrossed the state looking for the toughest competition that we could find. Indiana Mat, which is a news publication website for Indiana high school wrestling, their rating of our schedule was that it was the 8th toughest in the state, which is a pretty big deal considering the people above us went off to Ohio and took advantage of out-of-state rules to go to some really big time tournaments on the national level. With that tough schedule, we still had over an 80% retention of our athletes. That's a big deal and a big testament to our coaches, that, you know, to be able to maintain those guys and keep those kids in the room was a big deal for our program. That being said, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to our underclassmen and our JV athletes that participated in the JV state championship. We had 2 JV state champions, and our JV team finished 5th in the state as a whole. This year we had 4 academic all-state athletes, which is just a testament to our athletes taking student athletes seriously, and it's something that we preach on a regular basis. This year we sent three athletes to the state championships in Indianapolis, which is the most that we've sent since 2009 as a school. Asher Ratliff was a qualifier. Justice Thornton placed 7th, and then Cohen Long placed 8th. And this is now our fourth year sending an athlete to state, and before that it had been a very long time. So I'll start primarily with a rundown of Justice Thornton, who he had a conflict, a college visit that he needed to go on this evening, and he's unfortunately not able to be with us, but he leaves Columbus North as one of the most decorated and most one of the best wrestlers to have ever wrestled at Columbus North. He's a two-time state place winner. He is a three-time state qualifier, four-time semi-state qualifier, three-time regional champion, three-time sectional champion, and the first ever four-time conference champion. He's the second ever three-time state qualifier, along with those state accolades, he has the school record for career winning percentage at 89%. He has the freshman wins record, school record with 37 wins. He's the second in career wins with 142 and 17 record, and he's the fourth in single season falls with 30 falls. He's represented Columbus North and Indiana at Fargo on the national level. He's gone twice, and he's seeking his third attempt at that tournament. And he's got a 5-4 record at Fargo, which there's a lot of kids that don't make it there, and there's quite a few kids that go and don't win a single match. So the fact that he's gone and represented us well on the national level is a big deal. Next, I want to talk about Cohen Long. Cohen Long is a sophomore, another underclassman. Last year we brought 2 underclassmen, and this year we took 2 underclassmen to state as well. Cohen's a sophomore. He's maintained a 3.5 GPA. He plays football. He led our wrestling team in takedowns with 72 takedowns. He's got a current career record of 59 and 19. He placed 8th this winter at the state tournament. He's only made 1 trip to Fargo, but he's got a 5-4 record and was 1 match away from All-Americaning at Fargo. We've only had 2 All-Americans in our history at Columbus North. They're both of these guys are seeking to achieve that goal and to further increase that number in the future. Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Lewis and Mr. Clark for their unwavering support, and both in the from an administrative standpoint and helping us truly build this program. And I'd also like to thank my assistant coach, Adam Wolka. He's brought such a tremendous amount of organization and clarity and just general wrestling skill knowledge to our program. And so I'd like to thank all of these guys. Thank you.
and thank you to Dr. Phillips and the Board of School Trustees for the opportunity to introduce the Edna Folger Award presenter, Mark Rothbard.
We are here this evening to recognize Jim Paffenberger as the 2025 Edna Folger Outstanding Teacher. Jim, will you come up and join me? You may know that along with SIHO, the Community Education Coalition, the Columbus Area Chamber of Commerce, and IU Columbus Center for Teaching and Learning, sponsor the Edna Folger Outstanding Teacher Award. For some background, the Edna Folger Outstanding Teacher Award was designed to recognize the impact teachers have both in and out of the classroom. This award is named for local teaching icon Edna Folger, who invested more than 46 years of her life educating students in Bartholomew County. The Folger Award celebrates dedication to teaching profession, ability to motivate students and staff to reach their full potential, innovation in teaching style and curriculum, the ability to form strong bonds and relationships with students, parents, and peers, and contributions to the community outside of the classroom. Like all previous Folger winners, Jim is a dedicated and talented educator with an unwavering commitment to the profession and to students. He encourages the personal growth of his students, ensuring that they have the necessary resources, support, and opportunities to reach their full potential. Mr. P has a magical way of motivating even the most reluctant students with his kindness, compassion, enthusiasm, and humor. His deep knowledge of behavioral and educational strategies helps to maximize the academic success of his students. He focuses on nurturing the whole person, always encouraging a growth mindset. He creatively adapts materials, uses innovative approaches to meet individual student needs. Jim is the go-to person among his peers, offering patience and grace in difficult situations. His very presence is a motivating and inspiring force, helping shape the teaching philosophy of his colleagues as they become more effective educators. His calm manner diffuses even challenging situations and leads to positive outcomes. He leads from the front, encouraging others to be better educators by his example. His leadership and professional development and on the Continuous Improvement Council consistently improves the school for students and staff. Mr. P's ability to truly listen with empathy, meet people where they are, and build trusting, safe relationships is unique. He makes the very hard work of teaching students with emotional challenges look graceful and fun, and offers advice and strategies to parents as well. Jim was recognized as the 2020 Teacher of the Year, QMix Teacher of the Month, and the 2013 ARC Teacher of the Year. He coaches unified track and basketball, participates in theater productions, and volunteers for various school events. He's active in his church music program and is known as the Watermelon Bandit, delivering hundreds of watermelons throughout the community. Jim's soft-spoken encouragement, always with a smile, even on a rough day, makes our school and community better. Please join me in congratulating the 2025 Edna Folger Outstanding Teacher, Jim Paffenberger.
Thank you very, very much. It is definitely an honor to receive this award. It is equal parts honor and equal parts humbling to have received the Edna B. Folger Award. I would like to thank SIHO, Community Education Coalition, Marcia Van Nahum, and her role at the Learning Center, IUC. But I'd also like to thank this building here, Columbus North High School. It's been my home since 1990, and it's been a great place to call home. It's got tremendous leadership that I look forward to working with each and every day when I arrive. And in larger part, BCSC has been a great place to call, a great place to work since 1987. Then I'd also like to thank my wife, who is a fellow educator, and she has been there right with me the whole way. Most of us have a spirit animal. We may not have stopped to think about it, but I'd like to share with everyone what my spirit animal is. And a lot of people have a leopard or a lion. My spirit animal is a sponge. My spirit animal is a sponge because I have picked the best people to work with throughout my whole career to just sponge off of and borrow great examples and use those in my everyday living. So I thank you all for that. And once again, thank you.
Congratulations to Mr. P. Tonight, I am honored to announce the 2024-2025 Teacher of the Year for each BCSC school building. This year, nominations were accepted from students, staff, families, and community members. Each building then met to engage in a process to determine their Teacher of the Year. As I call each building level Teacher of the Year up to the front, I ask that the audience hold their applause in order to hear each person's name and kind words from their nomination form, and then we will give them one big round of applause at the end. Let's begin. In Clifty Creek, Michelle Matney, Art. Michelle works to not only give students a creative outlet, but teaches them life skills as well. Michelle has decorated the school with student artwork, helping them feel valued and seen. CSA Fadria, Jana Martin, first grade. Jana is very passionate about helping her students learn and grow academically and socially. Jana utilizes student data, building resources, and collaborates with her PLC team to serve families, students, and colleagues. CSA Lincoln, Sharon Newton, first grade. Sharon cultivates hands-on learning in her classroom, which is known to be organized with high expectations for students. She supports students beyond the bell with both individual and group needs. Mount Healthy, Gwen Handlin, kindergarten. Gwen works with colleagues to help eliminate barriers to student learning. Recognizing that each student needs specific tools, she implements those tools in her environment with ease and student excitement for learning. Parkside, Dana Polston, second grade. Dana is a leader in the building, sharing her expertise as a mentor for new teachers. Dana regularly researches and learns new techniques to aid her students and knows exactly what students need when they are engaged in lessons which provide a productive struggle. Richards, Jennifer Raishavi, first grade. Jennifer's craft of teaching students through the science of reading is unmatched. She has systematic and explicit daily literacy lessons that students enjoy. She is patient, caring, and puts her heart and soul into her classroom of students. Rock Creek, Kara Eckelman, special education. Kara is the purest definition of an exemplary teacher. She meets with teachers regularly to ensure her instruction aligns with class expectations, as well as meeting students' individual goals. Schmidt, Rochelle Berry, fourth grade. Rochelle knows each of her students' interests, strengths, and areas of growth extremely well. She is always willing to host instructional rounds, share best practices with her colleagues, and foster positive relationships with students and families. Smith, Tatum Savert, first grade. Tatum excels at using data to implement classroom interventions in order for her students to grow and achieve. Her classroom is a safe and inviting place for all students as she strives daily to meet their individual needs. Southside Polly Major, 3rd grade. Polly remembers each and every student she has taught over the past 27 years at BCSC, and they remember her for her engaging and creative lessons. She truly believes that teaching is the best career ever and has mentored others along that same career path. Taylorsville, Jennifer Arkins, 2nd grade. Families have stated that they feel very blessed that their students have such an amazing, loving, and inspiring teacher in Jennifer. Jennifer's classroom is characterized by respect, collaboration, and a genuine enthusiasm for learning. Central, Beth Flamion, math. Beth has an unmatched dedication to student success. She is deeply committed to ensuring her students understand and excel in math as she teaches pre-algebra, algebra, and geometry, requiring meticulous preparation and organization. Northside, BJ Marks, band director. BJ Marks combines high standards for both himself and his students as he utilizes his subject matter expertise and unparalleled work ethic to produce a band that is impressive and dedicated to excellence. Columbus East, Lynn Acton, math. Lynn's interactive teaching style, hands-on activities, and high-energy approach to teaching make it nearly impossible for students to disengage in their learning. She holds students accountable with care, creating a classroom environment built on trust, encouragement, and high expectations. Columbus North, Amelia Shaw, German. Immersing students in the German language and culture in her classroom, Amelia is a master of the craft of teaching a language. Her consistent partnerships with both community members and exchange programs provide students with real-world experiences to enrich their high school careers and depth of learning. CSA New Tech, Zachary Schroeder, math and engineering. Zach provides exceptional dedication to his students' success in the classroom, both academically and personally. He is highly knowledgeable in advanced mathematics and takes the time to explain complex concepts in an engaging and thorough manner. C4, Jessica Davis, engineering. Jessica's class projects are well thought out and the students respond well and are prepared for their college and career experiences. She is a collaborative colleague, providing advice, support, and problem solving to reach every student's needs. Early learning, Alicia Harrison, pre-K special education. Alicia is dedicated to her students and families. She collaborates with the pre-K team to provide resources, strategies, and training to support students. CVP, Anita Watkins, math. Anita is incredibly diligent and consistent with students, showing care and dedication to teaching math. She is creative in finding instructional tools that help students overcome the complexity of learning mathematical concepts virtually. One family notes, she's extremely kind and it shows she loves her job and her students. Please join me in celebrating the 24-25 building level Teachers of the Year.
My sister-in-law teaches math. That's what I was going to do. It's a good sign. Count two. Secondary, that's
Now we could relocate back to the admin building.
Exactly.
Should we invite them
Yeah, right.
It's like the Red Sea.
If you're here for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to come forward or stay where you are. Congratulations to all those we recognize this evening. As one of the coaches said, I think especially we owe thanks to the parents. Next item on the agenda is school board member reports. This gives school board members the opportunity to bring the rest of the board up to speed on committees that they attend and represent the board on. I'll just go down the line. Ms. Lloyd, anything to report this evening?
I attended my first BCSF meeting last week. I enjoyed hearing about the great work they're doing. A couple of things happening. So there's going to be a communication sent out to teachers in the coming weeks regarding 2025 grant opportunities. So the foundation's really excited to get some dollars into the classroom soon. They're also prepping for the Mela Gala, which is set for April 26th. Reminder that part of the funds from this gala do support STEM programming at BCSC. You can get tickets online and through the foundation. And then really important for me to acknowledge, because Todd Grimes is involved in leading the charge in the Good, Better, Best 5K, which is happening also in April. Also the same day, April 26th. So you can start your morning with a 5K and end at the Mela Gala, all to support BCSF. So just really excited about that opportunity. And last but not least, Council for Youth Development had the annual Youth Summit this past Friday. It was amazing to see so many BCSC students, around 100 of them from all over the community, Day of Learning, Leading, Growing. They participated in really great conversations with community leaders around financial literacy, networking, goal setting, and follow through, which I thought was really interesting. It was just a wonderful day for our kiddos, so I was glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Ms. Lloyd. Mr. Major?
No update for the Health Trust, but for the Redevelopment Commission, City Redevelopment met and they talked about the Rubicon 11th and Washington Housing Project. Everything's moving forward there. They talked about Deaver Road Sanitary Project for Toyota area. That construction will start next month. They talked about a Wellsboro Airport Master Plan that's starting out with some data collection and stakeholder engagement. And then on April 17th from 4 to 7 p.m., there's a community discussion at the Commons for the update on the 2030 plan for Columbus downtown. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, we met with the CCIC, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. I don't want to take the thunder from Dr. Hack, so we did talk a little bit about the new teacher mentors, which I'm sure they'll brief. And we also talked about the several advanced STEM programs across the corporation, and there it looks like about 250% increase in participation over the last 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Click?
Didn't have any council meetings over the last, or committee meetings over the last month or 3 weeks, but the Wellness Council will meet next Tuesday, April 8th, and waiting on the itinerary for that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Glick. Mr. Nowlin.
The IUC Advisory Board did not meet since our last meeting, and neither did the BCSC High Ability group. But I do have, I'll try to make it a brief update on the ISBA's take on the state legislature. One thing to note is that bills have to come out of committee by April 10th. So any bill that hasn't come out of committee by then is dead for this session. ISBA is still tracking over 70 bills that impact education. I am not going to talk about all 70 of them. The Senate Bill 1, property tax reform, is still, has not passed yet. And House Bill 1001, which is the budget, which impacts us a great deal, has not. They're still working on that. Senate Bill 287, partisan school board race, just passed today. So in the next, which impacts all of us, and in the next school board race, candidates have to be identified as Republican, Democrat, Independent, or they can leave it blank as nonpartisan. The other bill that the ISBA update talked about in the most recent edition was Senate Bill 373, which ISBA has been neutral on this bill, but there was an amendment just added, amendment number 9, which there's two parts to it. One is about facilities and one is about transportation. And I don't know if I get this all straight, but I think each one, the amendment, which the amendment has passed, the bill is still pending, but the amendment would create a new board that would have a representative from a new board for facilities and a new board for transportation, which would have a representative from each school corporation, private school, or charter school, and those boards would have some oversight in transportation and facilities and tax revenues. And that's a big concern for ISBA because it's taking decision-making away from groups like ours.
Thank you, Mr. Nallon. I did not have any meetings since our last school board meeting. Next on the agenda is cabinet reports. We have a number of those. Mr. Edwards, it looks like we're going to hear from you first.
As the secondary science curriculum team makes their way up there to the microphone, I'll just remind you that last board meeting, the elementary team presented their recommendation for curriculum material. That's under approvals for this evening, requested approvals. This presentation tonight, give you a chance to ask questions in process, will be on the next agenda for approval.
Hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. This evening we will be discussing the proposed adoption of new secondary science and health materials for our district. This process has been a collaborative effort and we are excited to share the details with you. I am Laura Ousley, a UDL facilitator at Central Northside in McDowell, and I am joined by my fellow UDL peers, Kat Gratz and Kate Slabowski, and the department chairs for our two high schools, Andy Kiefaber at North and Aaron Lanat at East, as well as our Director of Secondary Education, Charles Edwards. This adoption process was guided by our science and health adoption resource teams, two dedicated groups of individuals committed to finding the best resources for our students. We are going to first discuss the science team. Our team consisted of a diverse group of educators and specialists, including the science department chairs, a tech director, some UDL facilitators, and many teachers from across the district, and even a district administrator. Each individual member brought valuable expertise to the selection process. Our primary goals were to evaluate a wide range of potential resources and to optimize our selection based on several key factors. These factors included accessibility. We wanted to ensure the materials met the diverse needs of our learners. Quality, to focus on accurate and engaging content, balancing that with cost efficiency, making the best use of our budget while balancing also the compliance with state and or university standards to align with educational requirements. Ultimately though, our overarching goal was to choose resources that best support student success in all of our science courses. We wanted to ensure that we're providing our teachers and students with the tools that they need to excel, fostering a love of science and preparing our students for their future success. So a little about our timeline. So our adoption process began in August with an initial meeting focusing on establishing group norms, defining our clear goals, conducting a teacher survey to gather their crucial input. Throughout this process, we strategically minimized the needs for substitute teachers by utilizing professional development days and scheduling after-school meetings for necessary training and collaboration. This ensured that our teachers remained in their classrooms during instructional hours, maximizing student learning time. So following this initial foundational stage, we progressed through several key phases. These included detailed vendor presentations, comprehensive resource reviews, and meticulous negotiations through SpinBridge, ultimately leading us up to today's board presentation. Okay, so a little bit about how we ensured that we were accessing high-quality content. So our district is committed to the universal design for learning. Therefore, all materials considered had to align with the UDL framework. This means that the content has to intentionally provide options for engagement in order to capture student interest, multiple options for representation to present information in various ways, and action and expression to allow students multiple ways to demonstrate their learning. Kate will expand more, but in essence, the UDL framework ensures that we prioritize accessible, high-quality content for all students. This was a critical lens through which we evaluated each of our resources. But beyond UDL, we did have other key considerations. First of all, the chosen resources had to integrate seamlessly with our existing BCSC infrastructure, specifically our student information system, PowerSchool, and our learning management system, Canvas. In addition to that, content expertise was paramount. We heavily relied on our committee of content specialists from across the district to thoroughly analyze and discuss the resources. And finally, to ensure comprehensiveness, we reviewed every resource from the Department of Education's 7 through 12 grade bands on their state-listed high-quality vendor list. This thorough approach guaranteed that we really were considering all viable options. And we carefully reviewed materials from a variety of reputable vendors. As I said, we looked at every vendor off of the state preferred vendor list. Some of those include companies like Savas, Twig, HMH, Amplify Science, in addition to others, as well as supplemental programs like Gizmos and Enkits. With that, I am going to pass it off.
Yeah, so I just want to say that through our work with the teams and teaming at the high school level, we talk about being similar to identical. And so we want to be as closely aligned as we can when we're looking at those teams. And so we took that attitude and we kind of applied it, overlaid it here, and we set a goal of trying to be as aligned as possible when we were adopting materials. And so I'm proud to say that we were able to do that for a large amount of our foundational courses. And so what you're looking at is you're looking at a list of the resources that we found to meet our needs for all of our science courses. So there are 20 courses listed there. And so when I talk about the foundational courses, I'm talking about biology, physics, chemistry, integrated chem phys, environmental science. So those are the ones for which we looked at and said Savas really meets our needs. And so Savas is interesting. It's a Pearson product, and so we're not unfamiliar with it. If you look at the list, you see Pearson sprinkled in there from top to bottom. So again, it's a different company, but they bought the Pearson product, and it's things that we have used before and that we are familiar with, comfortable with, things that we feel like have produced good results in our students. And so really what you're looking at essentially is a readoption of a lot of familiar materials. The upper level courses, the astronomies, the honors chemistries, the zoology, the physics C, all of those things, the AP physics, and some of our dual credit courses. We do stray a little bit in terms of we don't always use the same text, but some of those are kind of course dependent, and then some of them are dependent on the university, if it's a dual credit course. So we do allow some autonomy at the upper levels. One of the interesting things is that we are looking at adopting Code High School for our computer science courses, and that is an open source web accessible tool, and it was developed by two guys out of Stanford, their computing science department, who wanted to give computer science expertise to everybody across the nation. And so nationally, it is one that is adopted a lot. And it also, they do a lot of localized professional development. So we felt like that was a good fit for us. On the next slide, please. On the ocean science, that might stick out a little bit. And the interesting thing with that is that there's a semester 1 and a semester 2 textbook, and it's necessary that way. So again, we had folks who represented the ocean science on the committee, and those were the textbooks that they came up with. Please, yeah, go back one slide, please.
One thing I wanted to interject on the zoology, that course that sticks out obviously at 106, that course is going to be about $7.50 per student. When Spenbridge did the big work, then we got the numbers back, and from there, we've been able to work with them more specifically on that. And so that's a course I teach, but we will get a class set instead of a digital access to that for every student. So we get the big numbers, and of course, we look at what's going to be best for the kids. So I wanted to speak specifically on that one.
The only other thing that I have to say is that the AP Bio course that's listed, you see the Pearson Mastering Biology Life on Earth. That is an AP Bio course at East. And the AP Bio book at North will be different than the one that's listed there. It did not make it onto the spreadsheet, and I apologize for that. But when we put these on the secondary page, because we're going to make this resource available on the secondary page, that will be corrected, and we'll have that, the AP Bio book for North also added on there.
Next slide, please. So Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, is the instructional framework of our district, and UDL is the approach that ensures all students have equitable access to learning by providing multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression. The rubric our teachers use to evaluate resources prioritized alignment with UDL, and the primary resource that we are recommending for adoption for our most foundational science courses is SAVIS. So you saw that was for 7th and 8th biology, chemistry, physics, and ICP. And this resource will strongly supports UDL principles. SAVIS resources support the UDL principles of engagement by encouraging scientific inquiry through hands-on experimentation and by offering options to students about how they can access content. SAVIS's language options, explicit vocabulary support, high-quality visuals, and scaffolding demonstrate how their resources align with the UDL principles of representation. SAVIS's leveled text and structured literacy help ensure that all students can access the content. SAVIS resources support UDL principles of action and expression by giving students various means for expressing what they know, including hands-on labs, digital simulations, and real-world connections. Next slide, please. So one of the key reasons we selected SAVIS is its combination of digital access and print materials. And this flexibility is going to allow students to engage with content in ways that best suit their learning preferences, whether it's through the interactive online tools and the interactive on the online textbook or through the traditional textbooks that they have in their class. SAVIS also supports students with diverse learning needs, including offering accommodations for students with IEPs, multilingual learners, and those requiring assistive technologies. Features such as text-to-speech, adjustable text levels, and built-in translational tools make the science content more accessible and comprehensible for all students. Savvis also stood out because it clearly aligns with the next generation science standards and its three-dimensional learning framework of cross-cutting concepts, science and engineering and practice, and disciplinary core ideas. Savvis explicitly addresses all parts of the NGSS framework. Another important factor is continuity from middle school to high school. Because we're recommending that we adopt Savvis across multiple grade levels from 7th to 12th grade, I guess, students will benefit from a consistent learning experience that reinforces concepts over time, and it'll make it easier to transition into more advanced science courses because students will already be familiar with the online system and the textbook. Savvis integrates smoothly with our district's technology platforms, including PowerSchool and Canvas. This allows teachers and students to access and interact with the material seamlessly, improving the overall learning experience. And this is actually one reason why Savvis was so attractive to our teachers. The teachers in our committee found that Savvis was by far the easiest for students and teachers to use. It's also important to note that while Savvis is our primary recommendation, many of the other resources being updated and renewed for high school electives provide similar benefits. These materials also align with UDL and print components, and many of the science electives are adopting updated versions of their previously adopted resources. So these are resources that we've already vetted 7 years ago and we're readopting, and we have found success with them. So by ensuring consistency with previously adopted resources, we're maintaining some continuity in our curriculum. By adopting Savvis along with these additional updated resources, we're ensuring that our students have access to high quality and engaging and accessible science instruction. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say a few words about what's on the screen there. So those are supplementary resources that would also go along with the text that we are adopting. And again, these are things that we currently use and have found engaging and have really extended lessons for us and have given, let's see, they've given, I can't think of the word that I'm trying to use here. They give application to the science that students are learning in textbooks. So again, these are just kind of companion things that we would like to continue to be able to use in the classroom. Again, they're familiar and we've used them before and have gotten great results from them. One of the other things that I wanted to point out is that CSA likes to use these tools as well, and because of their problem-based approach to learning, they don't necessarily cover the standards the way that you would cover them in a textbook from front to back. Those standards are woven into the problems that they are addressing at that particular time, and to be able to have the flexibility to use these kinds of tools is important to what they do under roof over there. And I think that's it for me.
During the same time frame as our science curriculum review, a dedicated committee also evaluated health education resources. This committee comprised diverse district representatives, ensuring a comprehensive perspective. The process mirrored the science review, leveraging professional development days for vendor presentations. Through this rigorous evaluation, two promising resources emerged: Comprehensive Health by Goodhart Willcox and Health Smart by ETR. Both of these resources align with district standards and integrate seamlessly with PowerSchool and Canvas. However, ETR is only offered digitally, which is why the committee recommends the continued use of Comprehensive Health Skills for middle school and high school by Goodhart Willcox. Our district has a strong 7-year working relationship with Goodhart Willcox, and this resource has consistently proven to be content-rich and valuable for our students. Comprehensive Health provides learners with real-world scenarios that promote practical application, interactive elements that enhance student engagement, accessibility features to support learners with reading difficulties and visual impairments, and scaffolded activities that meet diverse learning needs.
So the other spreadsheet slide had a bunch of numbers associated with it, so I wanted to throw a number up for Goodhart Wilcox as well. So over the course of 7 years and our 7th through 12th grade adoption, this will average out to about $21.45 per student per year with this adoption. Next slide. And so the state standards are our curriculum, and we are seeking approval to get these resources that support the implementation of these state standards. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions.
Our thanks to all of you that are here tonight, as well as the members of the team that aren't here. We appreciate their time and their effort. Dr. Phillips, if I recall, this is a presentation only tonight, not an action item. Correct. But this possibly would be a vote to approve these resources at the next board meeting. Tonight's a good night for questions and discussion. Any board members have questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Glick, sure.
You said that the AP Bio at East and North will be different, right? And what's the reasoning for that, just out of curiosity?
Thanks for the question. It is mostly teacher preference. So in the cases where we can levy maybe a better price, we encourage teachers to seek the similar resource. In this case, our teachers, they attend different workshops in the summer for AP, and it's a high stakes course. Usually the difference between two resources over a section or two of AP Biology is not much difference price-wise. And so then we kind of allow for some, like Mr. Edwards said, some autonomy for the teachers to, in one case, the remark I recall was one was more concise, so then they could kind of lean on some of the more supplemental materials. And then with the other teacher, it was a lot more molecular and intricate. And so they wanted to kind of rely more on like a college atmosphere textbook for that.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. Nowen?
I have a comment and then a couple of questions. My comment is that I think it's great that you came to the decision to have SAVAS for middle school and for the high school core science. The continuity there is commendable, and I know sometimes with a committee like that, it's not easy to get to that kind of consensus, but I think the kids will benefit from that. I have a question about the process, because I have a lot of experience with this with math, and I think in many regards, math and language arts are easier because if you're certified for math, you're certified for all math courses, and I know in science and social studies that's not true. So my question is, how do you, in the process, how do you take care of, that some people are...
Target teachers that fill a couple of buckets. So some of our teachers have 3 or 4 preps, especially if they've been veteran teachers and have been through this. They may have we rely on their experience for that. At the same time, we do like new blood as well. So we really try to get a wide range of teachers that have taught a lot of different classes, but then also bring along some high energy teachers that may have some different perspectives of that as well. And not just current classes, but some of those veteran teachers that have been teaching for 20, 25 years have taught it all, have seen it all. In some cases, we've had a resurgence in a course that was formerly taught, and so we really rely heavily on that. Some of our teachers have moved from middle school to high school, or high school to middle school. We'll tap those teachers as well, as they have a breadth of experience from both aspects. So I hope that answers some of your questions.
And I'll hop in just for a second. The other important thing to know is that they send us samples, so they send us hard samples, and they also give us logins so that anybody in the department can log in and take a look at the materials. I got a phone call from East probably 3 weeks ago, and it was the receptionist there, or the lead admin, and she said, "I hope you don't mind. I'm going to open this mail. It has your name on it, but it's got books in it. I know, because it's heavy." And so I was totally okay with her, opening that. But that just, they're sending us those materials to distribute to folks in the department to have a look at it, to be able to provide input and feedback.
Okay, well, I appreciate stepping up to the extra challenge of that adoption. My last question is, computer science, is that AP computer science? And if so, is it, I think there's 3 AP computer science courses, principles A and B, is that?
Yes, so with the computer science is largely looking at the new diploma requirements. So incoming freshmen are required to take a semester of computer science. So yes, and we have taught AP computer science.
So the AP would be different. This is talking about the requirement that every student will have to take? Is that
correct?
Okay.
But we're also planning on using the same source as well for AP computer science as well. And just to kind of top off another point that Mr. Edgeworth was saying, we also use the professional development days so that teachers had access to these materials. And Mr. Edwards was kind enough to allow, we had a lot of teachers that really wanted to be there when the vendors came. I don't know if you know this or not, science teachers are pretty skeptical. So they came loaded with lots of questions. And Mr. Edwards allowed any teacher, science teacher that wanted to attend. And we had a high, maybe 70, 80% of our science teachers came to those. And so they were able to log on and use those professional development days for that. So a lot of input.
Yeah, we talked about the process. So the great thing was we did the vendors at the end instead of the beginning. And so it was a better objectivity to it. Teachers came in, were able to evaluate the sources, and then we could focus in on vendors later. So I think that really helped our teachers out. So the process from let's look at them first ourselves, let's communicate with others that aren't on the committee, then we bring in the vendors at the beginning of the year. So I think that whole process doing
For many of our courses, the company that we use to procure the resources, SpinBridge, they were able to negotiate the price of the professional development to oftentimes nothing or at best minimal, so.
Mr. Major?
So we'll have, yes, so we'll have good professional development, like we'll have enough in order to be able to make sure everybody knows how to use the resources.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you go to the last slide of this presentation, it piqued my interest about the state standards. I didn't know, and you don't have to speak to it today, you don't have to show it today, but it would just be good to know, as you go through the state-defined curriculum, do you have like a check box that says, yep, we got it all, and that we didn't miss anything? I'm assuming that you did it, but scientists, engineers, we always ask questions, so it's kind of like, just want to make sure that you guys didn't miss anything. I'm sure you're probably pretty thorough, and I do appreciate the skeptics out there that want to know more, want to learn more, because those are probably going to be the better teachers because they're going to put more time and effort into it. So thank you and thank them for doing that.
Any other questions or discussion tonight? Thanks again for the presentation. Thanks for all the hard work. We appreciate it.
Members of the board, on this next presentation, this one is very similar. Tonight is information only, discussion, questions, and then the approval will be requested for this item for 2 different purposes at the next meeting. One will be board policy that's in the first reading of the group of policies for tonight. The second will be in the form of an additional appropriation if we decide to move forward with this proposal.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Thank you, members of the board. I have with me today Mr. John Green, who is our coordinator of campus security, and Sergeant Julie Q. Smith, who is one of our school resource officers and our leader of all of our school resource officers. So the item that I have for your consideration and review this evening
is personnel additions for fall of 2025. This is a matter that we have discussed in executive session with the board as we are allowed to do so with Michael McIver and some other folks present for that. In BCSC, as you all well know, we have unique circumstances, and the way we are aligned between our high schools are unique in that a few things I'll mention that you all know already. We have open campus lunch. So that's deeply rooted in the thread of this community. And we also have many students that travel between campuses for instruction. That's unique to us. I don't know this for a fact, but no one's going to prove me otherwise. So I will say we have more students moving between high schools in the state of Indiana than any other school corporation, and prove me that I'm wrong. So we value that. That's really important to our instruction and our teaching and learning, and our kids value that. With that comes additional responsibility and some additional safeguards that we're looking to implement. Where we are today, the addition of recommended personnel for the fall, I would describe as an evolution. This is not a response to a singular event. Nothing negative has happened that we are now doing this. These are things that we've evolved through, mostly with our partnerships with local law enforcement to get to this point. So the three main areas that we would, and I'll get to the detail of the personnel here on the next slide, but the three main areas that we want these folks to focus on are listed on the screen. First and most importantly is that they develop relationships with students and visitors as they come through. We want them to know our students. We want them to know who they represent and if they had a sporting event the night before, that sort of thing. The second item on there is to maintain only authorized and unarmed students that enter and visitors that enter our campuses. That's a priority. And then third, and only if needed, of course, responding to any sort of life-threatening situation that may happen. I'll keep hitting the button here, Asher, but I don't think we're working. Maybe I'll mess with this between presentations. Thanks for the click there, Dr. Phillips, or whoever's in charge. So some additional details on this. We are proposing the addition of 4 members that we are calling SSOs, school security officers at East and North High School, 2 at each. This is a result of extensive collaboration that we have had with our local law enforcement partners, the Columbus Police Department and Sheriff Lane, Chief Norman at CPD and Sheriff Lane at the Sheriff's Department. Over the course of, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months, we've been working through these things. In the job description, we have several requirements, one being that they are Tier 1 Law Enforcement Academy trained, and these would be armed employees of BCSC. So these would be BCSC employees. Just as a reminder, our SROs are employees of the law enforcement agencies that we contract with them. So these would be employees of ours. And again, the main priority of these folks is that they know who's entering our buildings and that there's a process in place with that as students come and go throughout the day. Some additional detail in the job description that Julie Q and her team and our law enforcement agencies will assist us with is the requirement of 24 hours of firearms training, NASRO certification, and de-escalation training as well. There's some additional detail on the screen as well, and Dr. Phillips mentioned that no action tonight from the board, but we will come back with 2 items for an additional appropriation in the April meeting, and then policy adoption at that same meeting. Included in that additional appropriation, we are seeking the addition of 1 additional SRO to our team. So we have 5 now, and that would bring us to 6. That would be pending your approval, of course. That would be pending the approval of the additional appropriation of the county council as well. So that meeting will be coming up here in the next few weeks or so. So that is pending those approvals to take us from 5 SROs to 6 SROs. On the next slide, one item that was asked of us through executive session was a delineation between roles and responsibilities between a building administrator, an SRO, and an SSO. So we've put this together for you on the screen, and I'm going to invite Sergeant Julie Q. Smith to speak to it.
Good evening. As we talk through the differences in these, I think it's important to note, Dr. Bozeman touched on this already, it's important to note that it starts with building and maintaining positive relationships with the people in and out of our building. That we know for sure is how we are most successful in keeping our building safe. That's the number one thing that we do. But I like that they're in separate columns here because we're in different lanes down the same highway of school safety. Everyone has their job and must remain in their lanes. And we've done that very well over the last 11 years since we've had school resource officers. One of the things under building administrator is they deal in school discipline. They deal in all things, parental contacts and things like that. As SROs and soon-to-be school safety officers, hopefully, we will not deal in school discipline. We have not historically, and they will not either. So as school resource officers, we spend our time observing the NASRO Triad, the National Association of School Resource Officers. In that, we're obviously law enforcement, informal counselors, and public safety educators. I think it would be a great big surprise to folks to know that we spend most of our time right there in that informal counselor role. We spend a lot of time in classrooms helping with emergency operations planning, participating in the Safe Schools Commission's meetings, and actively engaging in school safety. As we look into the school safety officers, their job is very different. To simplify it, I think it would be easy to say they're gatekeepers of sorts, where their primary responsibility is to ensure the people and the things that come in and out of our buildings, that we're making our buildings as safe as they can possibly be. So I would welcome questions as to the differences. I don't know if it's time for that.
Sure. What questions do we have?
I don't have questions to the differences. I have a different question.
Are we open for all questions at this point? Yeah. Please go ahead.
So I think, and I know Dr. Bozeman, you and I discussed this when we were in executive session, is just looking at it, and don't want to get too far into the details of safety planning, is just making sure that we have a comprehensive plan, right? I have no problem. I agree with what's here, but that seems like it's possibly the third step in just making sure, like, for example, you're not walking through any detection system, preventative system yet. Clear backpacks, safety standards that have been taken in other areas. I think when we're looking down this road, I think we have to look at an entirely comprehensive plan that drives safety culture from both the preventative and the reactive measures. So that would be my only advice to add.
Yeah, thank you for that. As you recall, the board appropriated $2 million to safety and security in this year's budget. We know, and Mr. Green behind me manages the lion's share of that. We know that with those additional standards come the people that need to manage things. So we rely a lot on our admin assistants in this building in East High School and our building administrators already. So we're looking forward to having some people solutions as those types of things become available. So thanks for your comment.
Mr. Major?
Yeah, the big thing for me is we'll have policy to review, but policy is kind of the what. To me, the how is more important in this because you got a huge opportunity here to protect and save kids, but you also have some real negatives if the people don't follow the process. So my big question is, if in the next meeting we vote yes and we give you money and we give you a policy, when approximately?
Of August. I won't go in the weeds of answering your question, but the folks behind me already are working on that, both from a training standpoint. I mean, Julie sent an email a couple hours ago about NASRO dates to get folks plugged into, and also on the process side at the schools. So there'll be a lot of things yet to be determined that we'll work with the building administrators, and they're already thinking about this, of course, with your approval. Of what those processes are and how they navigate these things when students arrive in the fall. So thanks.
Any additional questions tonight? Thank you, Dr. Bozeman. Thank you. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Stenner. I'll just reiterate some of the things that shared by the team up there. We truly believe that the fact that so many students come in and out of each of our high schools every day is an asset to our community. Does it create some additional needs? Yes. But one of the things that I mention often, as I've come to realize even more so this year, is how unique an opportunity our students have when they can go to, we'll say, an AP bio class that we were just talking about, and then walk right down the hallway or jump in their vehicle or on a bus and go over to the other high school and take a medical science class in C4, or take a geometry class and then turn right around, walk down the hallway and go to a welding class where they're applying the principles of the geometry content that they just learned. So those things are assets, things that we want to protect, but this is primarily through building relationships, being able to ensure that at any given day there is no one in our high schools that's not supposed to be there. We think this is the best way for us to get there in the short term. So thank you. Next up, we have another cabinet report for you about a program that we've been really working on since probably the end of the first quarter. Came out of the first CCIC meeting of the year. We started talking about fundamental reading skills and how we could ensure that we had high quality teachers in the classroom every day with our youngest learners when it related to how do we ensure that kids have those fundamental reading skills. And so over the last several months following that CCIC meeting, we've had some folks working in the background with Dr. Hack and presented this at the last CCIC meeting, this proposal, and answered some questions and made some adjustments, and then have a recommendation here for you this evening.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Phillips and board members, for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about an investment in our schools, a new teacher mentor program for BCSE beginning teachers in grades kindergarten through third grade. This initiative is not just an investment in our educators. It is a direct investment in the success of our students, particularly in the development of fundamental reading skills while keeping our staff engaged in the work of BCSE. From brainstorming and continued conversations with our CCIC, we are creating something special that enhances both students and staff performance. And since Dr. Bozeman started this, I will continue to say, I don't think anybody else in the state is doing this. Prove me wrong. Imagine walking into a classroom for the first time as a new teacher, filled with excitement, but also overwhelmed by the enormous responsibility of shaping young minds. Without guidance, even the most passionate educators can struggle. Studies show that nearly 44% of teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years. Why? Because they lack the support and resources necessary to thrive. This is where BCSE is doing something really special, creating a mentor program that addresses these concerns and supports our newest teachers from day one. So what would this structure look like? It would be an experienced educator who has recently left the classroom and is well-versed in the science of reading, working hip to hip with a new teacher while fostering professional growth, instructional excellence, and data-driven decision-making. There would be times for mentors to work with new teachers in their professional learning communities, team teach together, observe and give feedback, collaborate on a problem, while all becoming well-versed in our adopted resources. We would build a culture of collaboration where we continuously learn from one another. When educators feel supported, they stay. When they stay, they grow. And when they grow, our students succeed. The result, a stronger, more stable school environment where both students and teachers flourish. As you can see on this slide, we have a well-thought-out plan of action to make BCSE mentor program a reality. We are invested in the success of our newest teachers, and this plan of action shows just that. We have a lot to do between now and August, but our teachers are well worth it, and we are willing to put in the time to make it happen. As of today, we convened a stakeholder engagement process. We've already talked with our CCIC and had their engagement as well as their approval, and tonight is our school board presentation. Next, we'll move on into mentor training. We'll match make and make sure that our mentors know exactly what their roles and responsibilities are. In August, you can see that we will start that relationship with the mentees and then continue logging the coaching cycle. And at the end, we will definitely evaluate the impact of our mentor system, our literacy scores, and our teacher retention percentages. We hire approximately 13 new teachers every year in K-3. So for planning purposes, our structure would be one where a mentor could work up to with six new teachers in our district. Please remember that the need of beginning teachers varies, so would that support. For example, our support would be heavy at the beginning of the school year, and then heavy again before winter break, and then heavy again before spring break, with additional connections and relationship building in between those times to work on specific needs to that teacher. We are estimating a cost of up to $3,500 per new teacher in mentorship costs. And as you can see on the screen, that's $25,000 for 2025 and an annual cost of $50,000 for the remainder. Both this structure and the cost analysis of this program have been shared and approved by our CCIC. We're excited about this opportunity for our newest teachers and exemplify that tagline that says, "Together we learn." What questions do you have about this proposal?
I'll take advantage and jump in. Can you talk about the tie-ins with literacy efforts and science of reading and the focus on K-3 teachers and our emphasis on reading in those grades? I know there's some tie-in.
Absolutely. That's definitely been one of the key parts, one of the 7 parts that Dr. Phillips has given us and charged with this year is working on those foundational reading skills. And we know that that begins as early as our pre-K, K1, 2, 3. So having a mentor that is solid in the science of reading and has recently taught those reading foundational skills would be instrumental to a new teacher coming out of a program, coming out of the university, or maybe even switching from another school. And we would give them that support where that new teacher would be with a mentor teacher who fully understands science of reading, possibly even has graduated with the keys of literacy in their back pocket, and can sit and talk about foundational reading, talk about fluency, talk about vocabulary, straight from the heart and the hip, because they were just doing this work.
And what if the mentors or the mentors' current teachers, what happens in their classroom?
So that's a great question, because right now our process is we may have a 5th grade teacher mentoring a 2nd grade teacher. And they can work on culture, and they can work on the climate of the building, and they can work on some processes around discipline maybe and around PBIS in the classroom. But the piece that's been missing all along is the intentionality. So in our process, we wouldn't take a teacher who's a current 5th grade teacher. We would look at someone who has recently left the classroom. Maybe a retired teacher, maybe somebody who has decided to do something else or stay home. And so we would solicit their support because they were a phenomenal teacher for us, and then they would come back and mentor. So we're not restricted by prep times. We're not restricted by, I have to go teach my class. We're not restricted to, I'm so exhausted at 3 o'clock, now I need to mentor. I can't do it. We're not restricted by any of those limitations at all, because we would be actually hiring somebody to come in and mentor our K-3 teachers.
I want to add a little bit more context to that answer as well.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Hack. One of the other factors, just to be frank with you, we know that we are coming up on the end of the 5th year of the implementation of the operating referendum, in which teachers who were already experienced, received a large increase in pay. And it's no secret that teacher pensions are based on your highest 5 years of salary. So if someone sees that if I stay for another 4 more years, I'm not going to see big jumps like I saw in that previous 5 years. We anticipate that there's a possibility we could be facing, I won't call it a retirement cliff, but a retirement, foothill or something to that effect. Sorry for the science teachers that just left, that was horrible. So one of the reasons we started having this conversation is how can we hang on to as much of that experience as possible? So if a teacher thinks, well, I'm put in my time, I'm ready to go enjoy myself and go do other things and not really work my tail off all the time, this is a way for them to stay connected, for us to continue to benefit from their experience and their expertise through mentoring a new teacher and really bringing them to the point 2-3 years later where they are at the top of their game. So I'm calling it the anti-retirement incentive for teachers that think they might want to retire. We say that's fine, but how about you stay and just put in a few hours a week working with new teachers?
And I think that Dr. Phillips hit it so well there, was saying we garnish their expertise because they are at the top of their game typically when they leave. They know all the programs, they know all the ins and outs of teaching those foundational skills. So we just stretch out their knowledge for another few years and instill it in a new teacher. So that's amazing, amazing thought.
Mr. Schultz?
What's the expectation of the number of mentors per teacher in the K through 3?
So we're flexible with that because we could have a teacher, let's say I just retired from Southside, I'm invested in Southside, I want to stay at Southside, and there are 2 new teachers at Southside. I would love to mentor them. So that would be 2-to-1 ratio. We could have an opportunity for a mentor that we talk with and they say, hey, I'll mentor anyone across the district, so up to 6 teachers. So 6 is about our sweet spot of where we can say that would be the max that we would have somebody mentor because of all the ins and outs that they need to do with that mentor to help them with those things that I talked about, the hip-to-hip instruction, the instructional rounds, the opportunity to sit with them and grow together. So 6 would be the max, Logan, but that's why we're so flexible with the number because I could have an affinity for Smith Elementary and that I know there's a new teacher coming in, I'll take that mentor, I'll take that mentee on.
And I apologize, it looks like we turned the lights out on you. I'll try to get my questions over quick. I want to say one, short of nothing, like your team's done a phenomenal job, so you've earned a lot of trust in terms of being able to deliver a proposal and making sure that we increase our literacy. And as you know, I'm a father of children in this age group, so I'm very close to this, and I can't help but go back to last year when I had a parent-teacher conference with my daughters. At that time, it would have been first grade. And she's like, hey, Logan, like, I've got 29 students. It doesn't matter what we do. And by the way, this is from my opinion, it would probably be on the one that would be doing the mentoring. And like, we've added UDL, we've added TAs, although I would argue the TAs are geared a little bit out there. We're gonna add this. It feels like we're really not addressing the root cause, which is, I mean, I've been in, I can't say this year, but last year I toured every elementary school, walked through, I believe, almost every classroom. And I mean, as I walk through every classroom, I count the number of students in each one. And I don't think I ever got under 25, except for CSA Lincoln. And it feels like we may be not addressing the root cause. And that's where I hear you. I want to put this implementation in, but like, I'm seeing that teacher who's been, I believe, a teacher, and we can talk offline about how long they've been there, and that was her biggest thing. She's like, I know your daughter, because I mean, my daughter, albeit wasn't exactly the most stellar student in behavior, knew her very well, but she's like, there's so many kids I lost because I just don't have enough time to get to all 29 of them. And this is first grade, right? So I think although I want to say yes, I also want to say is like, at $50,000 for every 6 teachers, it may be a bit different to look at how do we just add that extra teacher and relieve those teachers as well. So I'd like to see possibly looking at this as not necessarily an all or nothing, but more of a pilot one, pilot the other, and let's see how they both load. That'd be my only feedback.
Thinking about various strategies, thank you.
Yeah, and with that, I would say maybe it's not an extra teacher, but maybe it's 2 extra teacher's aides. Right, so just something to help with the student-to-teacher ratio. I guess I didn't understand it being someone that was a retiree. I looked at the mentor being a teacher that's been there 15 years that's willing to help, and this was extra time for them. So is this going to be, because it kind of sounded like you were mentioning it'd be better for someone that was not teaching in the classroom every day. Is this going to be mainly then ex-retirees?
That's a possibility, that's correct. Because right now in our structure, we again, as is the example, a 5th grade teacher could be helping a 2nd grade teacher, and that is just not the best model that we as CCIC talked about because of the, not only the time constraints, I can only meet with you here, or I only can talk about this because I'm not as well versed in those foundational reading skills. Or again, I'm just exhausted. Myself as a 5th grade teacher, I'm exhausted at the end of the day to help you mentor. Or be your mentor. So that's why we came up with this plan and this really thought out process of using someone who's not right now in the classroom teaching, but has just to step out the door and can really we can still capitalize on their abilities.
I've been in education, that was my 25th year, and I remember I had a mentor my first couple of years, also an econ teacher in the building. He was on the other side of the building. But he also had 150 students that he was working with every day, and for the most part, our schedule was the same. At this point, the state was paying mentors, I believe, $250 a year, maybe. At the end of my second year, when he collected his $500, he gave me a check for $250 because he felt guilty because he never spent any time working with me. Because he's also running his own classroom and coaching after school. It just is an enormous, it's certainly better than nothing when you have somebody in your building who's a colleague that can come and spend time with you after school, before school. You can ask questions and they can check in with you later. But we believe it's at least something different to try to have a teacher who's just recently retired and can come in and sit in your classroom for an hour or 2 hours during your reading block, and then come back the next week and really debrief with you, or come back, after school that day, and they can really give themselves to that work and not be weighted down by the pressure of having their own classroom at the same time.
And I'm with you. I guess my biggest concern is I'm assuming these are the teachers in the next 3 to 4 years that you would be targeting, just based on not trying to assume. But I go to, that was my now 2nd grader. I go to my now 3rd grader. I go back to her 2nd grade teacher, and she was on the at-risk list. I mean, Dr. Hack and I have had multiple discussions, and thankfully you all got her across the line. I'm very happy about that. I appreciate you dearly. But I remember sitting with that teacher. She's retired now, I believe. And she was like, hey, Logan, on this, I can't remember what it was called, but something with a ladybug. She's like, she's behind on reading here, but she's ahead on reading on this tool, and she's behind on reading on this tool, and then she's kind of on par with this tool. I was like, I'm looking at a retired teacher who's like, I was like, why you got 4 different tools? And she's like, well, we look at them from all different angles, and she even didn't really know. I was like, which one's the priority? And she's like, well, they all have different. So what I'm trying to say is that if we're gonna go this route, I think we gotta simplify it as well. Simplify the standard and how we're going to deliver that mentoring, because if one favors one tool, but that tool is not necessarily tailored to the outcome, then we may be in a different world of hurt. So I'm sure you're getting ahead of that. I'm just letting you know my feedback as well.
Good to hear, and our team truly does look at our adopted resource and the tools within that adopted resource, so we really push that. I'm not sure exactly what 2nd grade teacher was using different assessments for different reasons, but inside the mentoring program, they would help those teachers fully understand the tools within our adopted curriculum and then how to use those to the best of their ability to help students.
Mr. Glick?
So reading through here, I went through your stakeholder engagement process slides, just kind of get more of a broad concept of it. And in that was embedded a couple of articles. And so my question's prefaced with this. One of the articles was talking about kind of self-diagnosed good teachers or phenomenal teachers. And so what is your evaluation plan for finding or weeding out these so-called, I'll call them egotistical people who think they're great? And I spent 35 years teaching, but in all reality, you're the one just there clicking in, clicking out. So what helps pick the right mentor for you? And if you don't have the right applicant, will you not engage with that?
That's a great question, because what we definitely want is that mentor who is on the top of their game, who has science of reading in their background, who has looked at PBIS within their classroom, and we are looking at them as a stellar teacher. And so those are things that we have our current rubric using the UDL framework. So we do have a teacher success rubric that would be a good starting point. We'll also talk to principals and get their recommendations before we would actually engage in hiring someone. And then also just through an interview process, we would work with the person through an interview process and ask them those questions that we talked about. Tell me about your reading foundational skills. Tell me what you know about this. Tell me about fluency. Tell me what happens whenever you have a teacher who's using various tools. How do you streamline that effect? And so our interview process would help with that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Hack.
Mr. Nowlin.
First of all, I appreciate the fact that you're thinking about rolling this out K through 3 and the alignment with our goal for improving reading scores. That's a great fit there and focus. And I also appreciate, maybe to reinforce what Dr. Phillips said, using people who aren't currently teaching as mentors, as someone who years ago when the state provided that whopping $250, I was in the classroom and a mentor, and it is a real challenge to do that. And actually, along with that, I thought one of the most effective things I remember doing as a mentor with a mentee was to, we both got subs and we observed other teachers and then debriefed on that. And one of the pluses here is that would only require one sub. I know subs aren't easy, but it gives more flexibility for the two to work together, and I appreciate that part of it. So I have a data question. It says you'll evaluate the impact, which I appreciate that you have that as part of the plan. Evaluate the impact through literacy scores. So the data person in me wants to have a control group and an experimental group, but we're not going to have some teachers with mentors and some without. So,
Correct.
So what will we look at for literacy scores to see if how will we know if it's successful?
So
We'll have, sorry, I'll
please.
jump in there because I just want to talk about data. We can stay later after the meeting, so talk about data. So fortunately, one of the few things, to your point, Mr. Schultz, one of the few things that hasn't changed in a number of years is the test, the iRead 3 test. And so we will have previous years' data for teachers who were in their first and second year that didn't have a mentor to compare to this year and next year. I would anticipate that we would want to do this for at least this coming school year and the next school year before evaluating whether or not we continue with it K through 3, we stop completely, or we expand it to other parts of the district.
Okay, thank you. And one other question. The new teachers coming out of colleges, are they up to date, in your opinion, on the science of reading, or?
That is mandated from the state, that they are up to speed on the science of reading. But we also know there's a big difference between fully understanding research and then applying it in the classroom. So we definitely want to make sure that application is accessible to our newest teachers and they fully understand the why behind it. So yes, they are coming out better prepared with the science of reading, but now boots on the ground, how do they really make sure that it's happening?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Major?
Yeah, just one more thing. If you go back, I think it was, no, it was the other direction, right there, the goals. So I asked about this before, and I see reading, and I totally understand the reason why reading is on the list based on the state requirements. I just want to ask that we also have a similar focus on math, right? So we talk about being the STEM capital of the state. You can't be the STEM capital of the state on reading alone. So just please, let's do what we can to keep that focus on math as well. Just because math is currently not the target for what will hold a kid back doesn't mean it won't become that in the future. And if we're prepared for that now, as we're doing the reading, I think we'll be much better off. But I don't want to come back next year and see, now we got to do all of this for math because we only looked at how we were being graded, which was on the reading. And I think I'll use a term that was sent to me once. So the hard part with doing year by year is we're now looking at kids as a score, and all the kids are different. So that's been told to me numerous times. So the data is great. I'm all for data, but we have to look at a lot of factors there that are part of the algorithm, which is teacher tenure, teacher schools where they learned, quality of their student teaching. Because I look at some of this, like mentoring starts at student teaching, and then it progresses through in your classes with an older teacher or a principal. And I think that's something that I'm curious about is what is it that what should we be doing today already that is not getting done that's causing us to have to do this? And I know we've got a lot of people spread thin, and that's why a year ago when we talked about the $500 million, I mentioned like the auxiliary gyms, 50 million bucks right there. Throw that towards a whole bunch of teachers' aides, and that helps that stress to income ratio change a little bit. So.
All right, Mr. Schultz, please do give our thanks to the CCIC for the work on this. I will. Much appreciated.
And I apologize, I mentioned earlier that this was an approval item. It's not an approval item. We actually have funds that were set aside, I can try to remember, but it was 10 or 11 years ago, that were transferred into a professional development fund that still has somewhere in the neighborhood of $120,000 in it. Still has not been used to this point, so our intention is to take that and use it for this. It's not a property tax supported fund, so it doesn't require an additional appropriation, but we wanted to introduce the topic to you, allow you to ask questions, and then of course let us know if you have any concerns about us moving forward with this for the fall.
Yes, the only concern I would have would be having funds that are 12 years old that we haven't used. So.
Dr. Bozeman?
Hello again. Just one slide on our spring ADM report. This chart you are used to seeing is the same that we use in the fall, and was sent to you in advance. So nothing out of the ordinary. Down 136 students in the February 2025 count. Which, if you recall, that's consistent with other spring average daily membership counts. Last year, down 61 students. The year prior, down 70 students. 2 years ago, down 158 students, and the year prior, down 120 students. So this is a common theme for us. It also reflects our early graduates that we have in BCSC. I think about 50 this year, Mr. Edwards, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I won't go into too much detail here unless you have questions, and if you do, that's great. And if you don't, I'll continue on to my next item.
And again, I'm going to interject and just add on that this is common in the vast majority of districts across the state, that from fall to spring, it's declining enrollment. The only districts that actually increase are the ones that are building 300 and 400 homes per year, and you can picture which those districts those are. We do look closely at where we are declining and try to determine the why, but oftentimes there's employer actions in the community that we don't know anything about until we dig into one of these numbers and then realize that there were some cuts made somewhere. But this is pretty consistent with the average of the last several years.
Mr. Nowlin?
So I fully understand that the high school, a chunk of that is kids that graduated early. It seems like Clifty seems like an outlier, and I wonder if is Clifty typically an outlier in this, or is it just a one-time phenomenon? Do we know what's going on there? I have no idea.
So not speaking to Clifty specifically, but typically our title schools have a variation with their enrollment. Taylorsville, Schmidt, the same. So you'll see those enrollment numbers, Pekin Valley, a little more so than other buildings. So we can look into it a little bit more, but I would assume that's the same with Clifty.
So to that point, Schmidt and Smith are up 23, whereas Clifty's down 22. And so there's a lot of movement between those three schools.
Yeah, that was my next question, is how many of these were school transfers by chance? So.
History, would it be possible to get like total trends over time, just to see? I think Dr. Phillips mentioned something that's pretty important with respect to, like, COVID changed a lot of things. So I know for a fact that people I worked with started to move to Greenwood, maybe out of state, and so that changed the dynamic of Columbus a little bit, and it'd be interesting to see like 2018, 19, 2021, and then from there on to today, just to understand Was there a peak? Are we in a valley and then we've got our projections that are all projecting down slightly. So it'd be interesting to see where we are with respect to those projections. Are we on the line, above the line, below the line, just so that we can have a better understanding of where we think we'll be, 6, 8, 10 years from now.
Sure, we can get that to you. We have a lot of ADM data, as you can probably see.
Data's good. Data's good. Thank you.
We ready for the next presentation?
I'm ready for the next one. Okay, thank you. So this photo, I just thought it was a good story. So it's 8:20, so we'll start on story time for the next presentation, which I'm sure you appreciate. So these guys, this is part of the construction crew at Schmidt. And Katie Day is a principal at Schmidt, and she, if you know Katie, she told these guys, she's like, hey, we're going to you guys are going to be the yearbook this year, so we're going to take a picture of you for the yearbook. So you can imagine, construction guys are, yearbook, whatever. So that's the yearbook photo. So they all lined up, and there's a few that are even smiling. So I thought about this weekend. A lot of these guys worked on the Parkside project also because they're connected to Maxwell. These guys had a lot putting a lot of time and effort into the buildings, and with a tremendous amount of pride. So we'll take a walk through Schmidt in April with the board. You'll kind of see mid-progress things. We don't mention it. We don't mention side very often. It's when it comes to this work and this work. I wanted to point that out and honor these crews that are doing a tremendous amount of good work for us here at BCSU. So Dr. Phillips, I don't know, Dr. Phillips, so you see how well I talk, how well I keep up, or I keep up with you. This chart is what you have seen in the past couple of school board meetings and board meetings, and we'll continue to see. I won't speak about the top three because the notion have not changed at all. North and north side, we have consideration tonight. Consideration that in detail. East and Smith. Similarly, you'll see that number for Smith and the East project is slightly above budget. Also, that is pending your approval. The two items on the bottom, no change on those. Either at this point. Dr. Volz is here from Smith Elementary, representing the design team. So if you have questions about anything that you see detail, she knows better than I do, and she's happy to. I should look and see if she's still here. She's still here. She's happy to answer any questions. So we'll flip through some renderings here. Most of these you've seen, but some you may not have. So main office from the front. The main office when you're inside the front. For reference sake, this is just inside what used to be the main office on the Circle Drive. To the left is the media center in there that they'll be able to see out to, which you'll see on the next slide. That rendering, and then that's a small group instruction space just above. That's currently a courtyard that's open to the air. That'll be infilled for that media center. I'm really excited about that. We'll make some tunnel improvements there, but the tunnels will remain as part of the design of the building. On the next slide, this is a new corridor that will be added. One item that the teachers at Smith talked about was the fact that you can't really get from point A to point B without walking through lots of other classrooms. So this will help solve that with the addition of a new tunnel at Smith Elementary. And then the next slide is just inside of this area for the STEM lab and the makerspace. STEM instruction is a big deal in BCSC. As you all know, it's an even bigger deal at Smith Elementary because they're really good at it. And they've got great robotics teams, and a lot of this design is reflective of that energy at Smith Elementary. This is an example of a classroom commons, a grade level commons space with a small group room and a classroom adjacent to that, which is similar to what you've seen in some of the other building projects. These next two slides, I have these in here to show an adjustment that was made to meet budget. So you see the special ed wing in this slide in the top right-hand corner. That was actually an addition that was originally proposed. And then when budget came back in, we realized we were hot on budget. So realizing that we could still accomplish, we asked CSO to sharpen their pencils and see if we can still accomplish the needs of that of that area for special education, but not have the addition. So we were able to do that. They were able to do that without any sacrifices. So the change then is the music room has now moved in the place of one flex classroom next to kindergarten. Dr. Volz did a great job working with her team and communicating and asking for any concerns. And because of all the original needs and wishes and wants were met, that went very well there at Smith Elementary and saved us a substantial amount of money. We were able to help us meet budget as a result. This is a site example with pavement. So I have this on here because there is a substantial difference in this. So on the left-hand side, which is the west side of the property, you'll notice some additional new asphalt there to stage the car line in there, to get the car line off of Waycross, which the city has interest in us for a safety standpoint with the city, obviously, to not have our car lines back up on city property, which we completely understand. So that's the solution there. And then on the east side of the building is a new bus lot. So this is the bus lot, an alternate that we took within the project under the premise of, if we make an adjustment on a future project, say in the third phase of our Envision work, financially, a financial adjustment with the scope of one of our later phases, in order to do things right in this project, we said we thought that was appropriate. So we talked to Dr. Volz and her team about, do we do the bus lot, do we not do the bus lot, and there was a lot of feedback about just pedestrian safety and such, and we thought, let's do the bus lot. It's the best thing for kids and for that building, so that's a result of that. So on the next slide, this document you're used to seeing, I won't go through all the details, but the top are a synopsis of all the lowest responsive bidders by bid category. The bottom, all the contingency fees, the reimbursables, the staffing fees, et cetera, for that total GMP amendment number 1, which is we are seeking your approval for tonight at the bottom. Next project is Northside Middle School. So Mr. BJ Marks is here. I appreciate BJ hanging around after his Teacher of the Year celebration. BJ is on the design team for Northside Middle School, and Mr. Marks has been in this building for a long time. And I will tell you what I appreciate a lot of things about Mr. Marks. He and I used to work together. But what I appreciate with his work in this is through his work with the design team, he doesn't, and nor do the others, but Mr. Marks is especially good at this. He doesn't just sit and wait for them to talk about band before he gets engaged or offers opinions or that sort of thing. So we talked a lot about the gym, Mr. Marks and I and others. So anyways, he is here to answer any questions you have on process also, because he's very vested in this project. So we'll flip through these pretty quickly. This is a rendering of the library, just some minor finishes in there. This is what they currently is the Commons, some additional finished work in there, new furniture, et cetera. This is a substantial change. This would be the large group instruction space that is currently the pool. So we heard loud and clear from the Northside folks that they need more space for large group instruction, band, choir, cheerleading, wrestling type things that doesn't eat up the whole gym. So we're really excited about this going in place of the pool. This is one of the 2 large shared science labs. It will be on the 2nd floor on the east end of the building, the 1960s space. The next one is just a rendering of a typical classroom. The classrooms will be, some of the classroom walls will move, others will not, and just have some finish updates, new technology, new furniture. On the next slide is a rendering of one of those grade level commons spaces, where each floor has one of these grade level commons available. And the next slide is the gym. So some really minor finishes. We'll add some windows in the gym. The gym floor needs replaced. It's at end of life right now, and a few other items in there, but not a major overhaul in the gymnasium. The next slide I have on here is this helps explain the alternates we've taken in this one. So I'll get into the bid categories here in just a bit and what those bid results resulted with. We were fortunate to have good bid coverage on this project and good numbers. So we're able to take alternates through this. So I won't go through a whole lot of detail on this, but number one, that's the ITE and what will be the CTE area. We're able to take that to right-size those spaces. We will add a new freezer and move some walls around in the kitchen to accommodate on a fridge and freezer space that's been in need for more than 10 years. Number 4 on this is the world language. It's currently the health classrooms and an art room. Those will be changed for the world languages, foreign languages to be in that area. And then 5, we barely got within budget. Mr. Marks, he was really just asking, you know, I'm joking, it was a priority for performing arts to have, to change, there's elevation issues in the flooring there, and also the addition of practice rooms and such. So we're able to take number 5 as an alternate. Number 3 is on here. We did not take that as an alternate. Those are just finishes that we, in those areas, the bookstore and some restrooms that we'll go back afterwards, assuming that we have contingency funds, which we likely will. And what's not pictured on here is similarly flooring and paint finishes in the locker rooms, lower level locker rooms. So again, we'll come back and do that after the project. Should be pretty straightforward. Second to last slide I have on this. This is, I'm not going to spend all day going through the floor plan of the entire building, but a couple things I'll mention here. That collaboration space, I was showing you a rendering of that a moment ago, that's shared within the classrooms. Boys and girls restrooms to the left, and on the right-hand side, one of 2 life skills classrooms. Right now, life skills at Northside, they occupy a classroom, and these will be designed around the many different needs of the programming that exists there. And then the classrooms with small group rooms in between, again, right-sizing those classrooms on the south, on the bottom of your screen as well. You have this in your board packet, but this is Meyer Najum's document, so it looks a little bit different than Maxwell's. Meyer Najum's our construction manager on this project. All lowest responsive bidders on the top. We did have 2 of those bidders that pulled their, during review, their numbers were very low, and when they were followed up with the next day, they realized they made some mistakes with their bids and they pulled their bids. So what you see there is a result of those 2 being pulled already. The middle section, all the contingency, reimbursables, general conditions, fees, et cetera. And then the bottom, a synopsis of the alternates that I explained. This project, for your approval, the GMP is on there at 44.9, and when you add in soft costs, we are at 50.663, which is just a tick under the budget allotted on the previous, few previous slides for Northside. So happy to answer questions you may have of me or Dr. Volz or Mr. Marks.
Mr. Glick?
The only question I have is for Smith regarding the sped area that was made smaller. If we find room in the budget, like we did with Schmidt in the parking lot, will we re-attack that?
No, because that's actually a building addition. Okay. It would actually be new square footage. It would be, we've actually reduced, short answer to a long question, but it changes mechanical, it changes plumbing, it changes even some storm retainage from runoff and that sort of thing from a new roof and all that. So
too expensive.
Yeah. So again, we in case you can speak to it if you're interested, but we and her team were satisfied with CSO's solution of that without making sacrifices to the programming that they had.
So to go along with that, with the current new plan for special ed, how does the square footage compare to the current square footage for special ed?
It's substantially better. I can send you numbers. I don't know. I'll let Casey speak to what their current state is and how they're broken up between spaces. But I can send you specific numbers if you're interested also.
So with our ED programming in our building, we were able to cut down on classroom square footage a little bit because we only have up to 20 students in that program, but we were able to maximize spaces like sensory room spaces, OT and PT spaces, and additional spaces for small group areas for students who might be escalated or struggling. So we were able to gain a lot. By losing that addition, we still gained everything that we needed. And our special ed program is, we're involved in that process, and they are pretty happy with the way that we were able to compromise with CSO and Maxwell on that.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Dr. Bozeman, Ms. Volz. We appreciate the presentation this evening. Dr. Phillips?
Thank you, Mr. Stenner. Before we move on past this last slide for Dr. Bozeman, I just want to point out the dates. We realize at both of our renovated spaces thus far at Parkside and Schmidt that had begun, we hadn't really been able to celebrate the beginning of those projects as you would with a groundbreaking. And honestly, I think I sent Dr. Bozeman last week, one time I saw a story about a district somewhere that was tearing down and building a new building in place of a 37-year-old building. And I thought, it's just a testament to how well this community invests in its facilities and then keeps them maintained over time. And so for schools like this is their groundbreaking when they're going to renovate the building almost completely. So we want to have those. Those are dates for you. You're certainly welcome, and anyone from the public certainly welcome to come and celebrate the beginning of those projects. So for you tonight, we have the first reading of Policy Package 4. This is our fourth group of policies brought in front of you for the policy reorganization simplification process. Tonight, we have for you 8 policies that will replace or consolidate all or part of 15 policies. But this evening, they are, and just a reminder, these were posted the afternoon of March 14th for public review for anyone to go in and see. Tonight would be the first reading, and then the second reading would be at the next board meeting with a request for approval. What is different tonight for you is that there is one policy that is new. That is the last one on the list today, armed security. That is a reflection of the proposal earlier. The state of Indiana did authorize that schools can hire their own armed security forces. Many districts have their own police department. Thank goodness we have a terrific relationship with the city and the county, and we don't have to do that. But that state law does allow us to establish the ability to have employees who are armed. And so this policy that you've seen and we've discussed in executive session is a new policy that would allow us to hire those folks. The other difference this evening is the board staff communication, policy D175, is a return of the policy we brought back for a first reading already and then did a board work session. There are several changes implemented there. I sent it to you in a red line version probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. Implemented several changes at the request of the Columbus Educators Association. Not all of them, but I think 3 out of the 4 of their requests are integrated in there. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have and or entertain any motions. It's just a reminder, since it's our 4th time back at this, when we decided to move forward with this process, we said that instead of taking every policy to a board work session, we would just review the policies in front of the board during the first reading, and then the board could make a motion, any member of the board could make a motion and vote to ask to take any of these policies to a work session that we would schedule. I believe it's at least 2 weeks prior to the second reading when they would be approved.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Board members, do we have any policies on first reading tonight that we'd like to schedule a work session for? Okay, Dr. Phillips, I think we can go ahead.
Thank you.
Next is public comments. We did not have anyone sign up for public comments tonight, so we can move into the business portion of the meeting. First is old business. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Stenner. Request for approval of the minutes of the March 3rd regular school board meeting and the March 3rd executive session proceeding. Request approval of item 6A, old business.
Is there a motion from the board?
I move to approve line item 6A as presented.
Second.
Mr. Schultz, Mr. Major, thank you for the motion and the second. Any questions or discussion on this item? Hearing none, we can move to the approval process. All in favor of approving item 6A, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Dr. Phillips, item 6A is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, under new approval, the routine new business items, supplemental contracts, field trips, and professional leaves, and school fundraisers. I will point out that item B and C do also have some items being requested approval in arrears. The field trips is going to be, I think that one was pretty normal, that they didn't expect to go to the, or didn't necessarily have a plan to go to the state championship. Under school fundraisers, we're continuing to work with the schools, school leaders, and club sponsors, of which there are hundreds, in making sure that we get those field fundraiser requests as soon as is possible prior to it starting. Under claims and payroll, we request approval under item 7D of the docket claims of just under $1.6 million for the March 31st date. The pre-runs from the prior month for just over $6 million, and then the March 7th and March 21st payroll amounts just under $8.2 million. Also under new business, we have the elementary student handbooks. We sent that out knowing we've done some major overhauls to the organization of the handbooks. Secondaries weren't quite ready yet, so the elementaries were sent out in a couple of weeks. I did receive questions from one school board member and then sent those to the rest of you, so you've seen the responses to that, but I understand there may be the need to look at that one, push it out to the next meeting. That's up to you all as a board if you want to take that one and push it out and consider it with the secondary handbooks at the next meeting. Also, approval of the elementary curricular material, that was Science Weekly from the last board meeting, and then approval of the guaranteed maximum price changes for Smith Elementary, which is part of the Smith and East C4 GMP, as well as guaranteed maximum price changes for Northside, which is part of the Northside and North C4 GMP, and then also permission to receive bids for the construction management firm at the Taylorsville renovation. I request approval of items 7A through 7I, new business.
I ask that we pull out line item 7E for an independent vote.
Pull out line item 7E. We got consensus that the board is good with that. Okay, do we have any others, items that we'd like to pull out of the group? Is there a motion about items?
So I move that we approve item 7A through D and F through I.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nowlin. For the second, Mr. Major. What questions or discussion do we have on these items? Hearing none, we can move forward with the vote. All in favor of approval, items 7A to D and F through I, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion's carried.
I move
7E.
I move that we table line item 7E and review it at a later date.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I'll recognize second from, oh gosh, Mr. Nowlin.
Oh, I was going to say Mr. Glick.
Okay, Mr. Glick.
Warm wrestle.
I'm sure Ms. Chrisman's going to enjoy going back over the audio for this meeting. Motion is to table item 7E to a later meeting. Any discussion?
I think the only thing is, and I'll be the admission that I was the board member with a lot of questions. I think just given the amount of questions, it may be valuable. I know that I was kind of wondering if one of the other policies would get a working session. It may be valuable to pair that into the working session and have a conversation around the handbook. And then I know that there was, one of the questions had policy 8500 attached. That's one that we've yet to review. And so I'd like to bring that into scope with that elementary handbook revision.
Okay, on the motion to table.
It was a discussion point, not to add on.
From a discussion perspective, the only thing I had noted was, when I looked at this yesterday, PPRA, Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, it says funded by Department of Education. That is apparently on its way out. I'm assuming that that's the federal, or is that state? I don't know. But there was one item in there, just I wanted to get some clarity on that to understand.
Which policy was that? Or that was the handbook?
I'll get it to you in a minute.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
And Mr. Schultz, I was struggling to hear, just want to make sure I heard you right. Policy 8500, you'd like us to consider that at the same time or in our separate work session?
If there were to be a working session or to be consideration, I believe one of the asks that I had for modifications involved a standing policy from the prior year, so that if we were to make a modification to the handbook, it would implement, then a modification of the policy would have to be in unison with it.
Thank you. Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, the motion is to table item 7E to a future meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. That motion's carried. That item is tabled.
Thank you.
Human Resources recommendations tonight, item 8A. Dr. Stahlbaum?
Thank you. The 18 human resources recommendations consist of 5 retirements, 5 resignations, 4 appointments, and 4 leaves of absence, and there are no additional personnel recommendations. I request that you please approve items 8A and B as presented.
Items 8A and B. Is there a motion from the board?
I move to approve line items 8A and 8B as presented.
Second.
Mr. Schultz, Mr. Major, thank you very much. Any discussion or questions? All in favor of items 8A and B, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Motion's carried and those recommendations are approved. Board input and review. Mr. Schultz, any input or review this evening?
Ooh, I get to go first. Well, I won't thank everyone, just to make sure everybody has opportunity. I wanted to say congratulations to all the 2 teams that we had here with the gymnastics and wrestling. Congratulations to all the teachers. It was well deserved. It was great to see the recognition and see the full house that's now transpired to relatively low attendance at this point. I did have a couple asks that I wanted to bring to the table as well for upcoming meetings. I don't know if I've seen it yet, but the projections or the demand from the demographer, that I may have seen that, and if there's any updates to that ahead of any talks about the West Side Elementary School and that's perspective. I also was wondering if we talked about it in CCIC, I think it would be valuable for this group to see as well, is a review of the high school graduation pathways and any update that may have came from the Indiana legislative session now that it's approaching its conclusion. And then finally, and Dr. Bozeman, I'd ask if we can get an update on the community education or community eligibility provision, CEP, and see what alternatives may exist in funding other schools with that resource. And if we can somehow pair that or at least get the data in conjunction with Dr. Hack on did schools that received this, for the community eligibility provision is the one that funded the free or the school provided lunch and breakfast for all the Title I schools, and just to see how did that influence grades or improvement of scores now that we have the reading scores for this year.
All of those, with the exception of the demography study update, are on plans for the next 2 meetings.
I figured you were ahead of me, but I just had to ask.
Not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Glick?
Like Logan said, Mr. Schultz said, congrats to the state placers, the North Girls Gymnastics. It's a tremendous feat. They had a great season. If I remember, I don't think they lost a dual meet. I think they're undefeated. And then the wrestlers, Cohen, Asher, and I'm blanking on, I can see his face. Placed 8th. One thing about Indiana that many people don't understand. Say again?
Justice Thornton.
Thank you, Justice Thornton. Man, you get in the moment and you forget. One thing about Indiana is we are one of 3 states in the nation that is a single class wrestling state championship. So just qualifying for state is a tremendous feat. You're literally top 16 in the state, whereas Ohio, they have 2 or 3. So, I mean, and the tournament's a little bit different. So it's a big deal for the wrestlers in the state. Also this morning, congratulations to the East Academic Letter Awardees. They were presented their awards and letters this morning. And then over the last couple weeks, Central and Smith Robotics won state and will be going to Dallas, Texas for Worlds. So that's pretty crazy. And like we said, we always brag about being the STEM capital of the world. So here we are. Let's bring it home. And then also, last and final, congratulations to the Columbus Winter Guard state champions as well.
Some good photos. Thank you, Mr. Glick. Mr. Nowlin?
So I meant to mention this during Dr. Bozeman's Vision 2030 update, but I noticed the portables have been installed at Schmidt. I don't know how you got those in that position, but it looks like it's going to work really well. If you see them, they're pretty big, and they somehow got through around the trees and everything to get there. And congratulations to all the teachers that were recognized tonight. I have to say a special word about Jim Paffenberger because I've had the opportunity over many years to see him in action. I am a firm believer that every teaching position has its own set of challenges, but he very well might have one of the toughest teaching jobs in this school corporation, and he makes it look easy because he's such an advocate for kids. And we have a lot of really remarkable teachers, but I am thrilled that he was awarded that award. And let's see, to reiterate what Mr. Schultz said, I would love to see a presentation on the new high school graduation requirements. I know that it's not exactly been forthcoming in a timely manner from the state, but it's our incoming freshmen that are under those requirements, and we heard about it a little bit tonight with the computer science requirement, and I've read about it, but I would like to see a full presentation, and I will continue to beat the drum along with that, a presentation on graduation rates rather than waiting to hear what the state says our graduation rate was. And finally, I should have looked up the date. There's a Book Buddies celebration for 20 years of Book Buddies, Wednesday, April 23rd, I think, at the Commons from 3 to 5. And I would encourage everyone to come and celebrate Book Buddies. And it's a good place if you ever think about becoming a book buddy, or if you know someone who would be a great book buddy, encourage them to come and celebrate and find out what it's about.
Thank you, Mr. Nowlin. Mr. Major?
Yeah, I think it's been noted about the academic letters at East. So I just want to tell Sherry, thanks for sending that out. Unfortunately, I couldn't go today, but I think it would be really nice if those things could come here as well sometime, end of the year maybe. It's a good culmination of all their effort to recognize that. Principal Volz is still here, so I think that's 2 years in a row for three. So I knew of 2. So 3 years in a row that Smith has been represented in Worlds. And, I know she's not here, but I know Mrs. Haynes is huge in making that happen. There's great support by parents in that school. So whatever you're doing, keep doing that and be a best practice beacon of light for other schools to copy from you to their programs. And then, it's something, I don't know, maybe Dr. Phillips will mention this too, but I just wanted to highlight, outside of here, there's a lot of activities for the school board to be engaged in ISBA activities, and this board we scored enough points as a team to get a commendable governance award, which is pretty cool for us. So not every school corporation gets any level of award. So I guess the challenge here is how can we collectively move up the ladder next year and do more. So I wanted to say thank you to all of us that were here last year, but also to Pat and Todd for what they did over the last year to help hit that level. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Ms. Lloyd?
I wanted to congratulate Coach Anna Carmen and the Columbus East speech team on their 4th place state finish. That was pretty incredible. They had several students who placed in the top 24 in their event. So congrats to Columbus East. I also wanted to thank Sergeant Smith and the SROs for putting on incredible trainings at East and North, the SAFE trainings for senior girls. I had the privilege to attend the Columbus North Day, and it was remarkable. As someone who's worked in safety for a lot of years, I walked away with new knowledge and skills, and I am just really grateful that our students are going to leave and head off to college with extra resources.
Thank you, Ms. Lloyd.
Real quick.
Sure.
Maybe I don't think I heard anybody mention, but didn't Winter Guard from North also place in the state? Okay, sorry.
I got it.
Good to make sure it wasn't missing.
I couldn't remember if it was mentioned or not.
I almost stole off his notes, but I didn't.
I think is that East and North, the Winter Guard?
Yeah, it's combined. Correct.
Dr. Phillips?
Thank you, Mr. Stinner. I used to just think that people that didn't participate in spring break were those that played baseball and softball. And then over this last break, almost all the things that you mentioned, that's what those students were participating in while everyone else was on spring break. So gymnastics state championship, same day as the Winter Guard competition, I believe same day as Math Counts was going on. And then the next Saturday was the robotics state championship that next Saturday. That was all impressive, but I'm coming to the point where I'm most happy and pleased that all of our students made it back from break safely. So that always makes me happy. I worry about those things when our students are traveling. Speaking of staying safe, I would just want to send our thoughts to Nikki and her family, Miss Wielden, whose family was hit very hard by the weather, not last night, but the week before. At the end of spring break there, and there are others in the community dealing with that as well. And everyone, just think about dry thoughts over the next several days, because we'll have 4 to 5 inches of rain coming in between Wednesday and Saturday. So we're thinking keep things dry. That's my only thought for the next week there.
Especially gym floors.
Gym floors.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. The next meeting of the school board will be held here in this cafeteria again on April 28th at 6:30. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening?
It's not on the screen now, but we do, any board members, we'll tour the construction site over at Schmidt at 5:15
on the same
on
day.
that same day.
Great.
Thank you.
This meeting is adjourned.